This is Joe Pavich Jr., and welcome to the Joe Pavich Podcast. This show is all about real people, meaningful conversations, and a splash of real estate. Welcome to the Joe Show. Today we're going to talk about the NAR settlement, and we're going to make it easy for sellers, buyers, and realtors to understand. Today I want you to meet my guest, Josh Rudnick. Josh is with Woods, Weidemuller, Machete, and Rudnick. Josh is a good friend. Josh, I've known you for a long time. Good to see you. How's things going?
Everything's great. Thanks for having me on.
Great.
Good seeing you.
Looking pretty sharp today, I gotta say.
Well, I dressed up for you. I was thinking you were gonna be in a tux today,
Nice.
So I had to step up my game.
That's great. Love it. Josh, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I stayed in a Holiday Inn last night, so I'm playing attorney today.
Nice.
I'm a partner at the law firm, obviously, as you know, Woods, Weidemuller, Machete, and Rudnick. Our law firm specializes in real estate law, and we have a commercial litigation department as well. But most all, I'm a dad to an 8-year-old. I got a great partner in life, and her and I raised my 8-year-old son, and I'm friends with you, so everything's looking bright.
It's going pretty good. Josh, funny story. My wife comes home about 3 years ago, and she says to me, "You got to meet my good friend Vic, who she's known for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Her husband Josh, he's an attorney." And I said, "Josh Rudnick? I know Josh. Let's all get together." I mean, it was hilarious.
It was. I remember Vic came home, and she's like, "Hey, so I was with Jem Pavich." I'm like, "Jem Pavich? Is that Joe Pavich?" She's like, "You know Joe?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, do you want to go to dinner with him?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, I've been talking to Joe every day, so yeah, let's go to dinner. When are we going?" So yeah, no, it's funny, small world.
That's great. That's great. Josh, I love the motto. Big firm quality, small town service. That's awesome. You know, I've worked with you guys for a long time. What I love is you guys always pick up. Great to work with. Easy, just real people.
That's it. I mean, that's all. That's how we try to operate the firm. Is keep it personal. Treat people just like everyone comes in. A client, I always tell a client, I'm giving you advice, the same advice I give my family and friends.
Sure.
And that's kind of how we've run, and that's how I've been doing this for, 20 years now.
Yeah, yeah. So when was it that you decided you wanted to be an attorney?
It's like one of those things in life. I mean, I still trying to decide what I really want to do when I grow up. But my dad, I think at like 15 years old, he's like, "Hey, you got to figure something out." But because 18, you got two choices: you either go to college, or he goes, "I'm dropping you off at Paris Island, and you're going in the Marine Corps because you're not going to be sleeping in this room anymore. I'm converting it into a gym when you move out." So I figured, I went to college, I couldn't become a pro surfer, so let's go to law school. And that's where it all, that was it. My goal in life initially was I wanted to following, our family's footstep in law enforcement and stuff like that, going to the FBI, but started, getting into law school and decided I'm going to practice law.
Sure. In high school, they ask you the question, right? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, of course.
And it's funny you said surfer because, I was a big skateboarder when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I probably said a pro skateboarder or something. But when you're a kid, you have absolutely no idea what you want to do for the rest of your life. It's interesting looking back and going, geez, I don't know. It wouldn't be real estate, that's for sure. Because when I was in high school, the idea of actually sitting in an open house every weekend sounded horrible. So it wouldn't be real estate, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, it's like one of those things. When I was in law school, I mean, I never thought I was going to be a real estate attorney. I mean, shit, out of law school, I didn't go right into practicing real estate law.
Yeah.
I was like, I followed in that law enforcement footsteps. I'm going to become a prosecutor, you know. But unfortunately, growing up in Naples, being a prosecutor in Naples, it's not good prosecuting your buddies that you were hanging out with the night before. So
that's great. Are you happy you made that decision?
Yeah, I mean, I was happy until this NAR bullshit, but I'm happy. It's been a good run. So it's one of those things. I get to meet people all day, every day. I meet thousands of people a year. I practice real estate law, so it's either commercial or residential real estate, and usually it used to be happy law. So there's a satisfaction when you see the joy in people, especially first-time home buyers. You represent them, you guide them through the process, you work with good realtors like yourself, and you see the joy in, like, I'm buying a house for the first time. And that's the cool aspect of my practice and our firm's practice. There's, like anything, there's stressful days, but but it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it's funny, in real estate, the NAR settlement, it's just such a big topic of conversation. I really appreciate you being here, because you've probably talked about the NAR settlement a million times. And again, thank you.
Well, I mean, when you told me you wanted me to come on and talk about the NAR settlement, I kind of rolled my eyes and I said, well, you're lucky I'm doing this. You're lucky I like you. You're a good friend of mine.
Thanks, Josh. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it is. It is what it is. I mean, we got to live with it. I mean, most people are still, no one likes change. It's a change. It's a big change. It's the biggest change I think in the industry seen in a long time. So
Sure.
It's, people trying to figure out what the hell's going on. What do we do? But it's here. We got to deal with it. So everyone's dealing with it, from the lenders, from the realtors, from the attorneys, from the title side. I mean, we're all navigating this uncharted water.
We are. As long as you keep the buyer, seller's interest in mind and be transparent, that's what it's all about.
That's it, man. I mean, it's like one of those things, I think it's going to weed it out. It's going to weed out the professions a little bit. You're going to see people dropping off, and that's good. I mean, that's good for everyone that wants to work hard. I mean, I think it's one of those things. I mean, if you could work harder than the guy next to you, even though that person has more talent than you, if you work harder than him, you're gonna succeed. And I think this is going to be something where people are really going to have to work to earn their commissions, know how to negotiate, be transparent. I think transparency is a good thing. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be interesting.
Yes, that's for sure. When people talk about this lawsuit, right, you think that it changes the whole way we do real estate. But if you think about it, since I started real estate, I've always been transparent.
Yeah.
However, the end result is, the same as before for a seller. For a buyer, there's a form that we have to sign. There's a relationship that we have to engage in. Yeah. And again, just more paperwork, really.
It's more paperwork and just explaining to people. Just don't stick something in front of someone and tell them to sign it. Explain to them, because they're going to question it. I mean, from a buyer's side, a buyer's going to say, wait a minute, I have to pay you a commission now? Like, doesn't the seller pay the commission? So now you're going to have to explain that.
That's
you're
right.
Going to have to, you tell them what you're worth. This is what I'm doing, and I'm going to negotiate this, and probably the seller will pay that commission, and you won't have to come out of pocket paying any of it.
Sure.
But we're going to put that into part of the negotiations, and we're going to get you the best price, best property, and I'm looking out for your best interests.
Absolutely. So. And we're going to dive in today, Josh, into that NAR settlement at the end. We're going to go back and forth, question and answers, and have some fun. Really make this really simple. So, Josh, people look at you, right? Josh Rudnick, he's an attorney. Things are going great. It's got to be a really simple career. Or Joe Pavich, he sells real estate. I mean, people just call in, buy homes. It's an easy career, right?
Yeah.
We all face these crazy challenges.
We do.
And it's when the market's strong, things are going great. When the market's not as strong, you still have to be great.
Absolutely.
What are some of the challenges you faced in your career?
The challenges, every day there's a challenge. I always tell young attorneys, I always tell my colleagues, my partners, I could wake up in the morning and think I know what my day is going to be like and have it all planned out. I'm working on this and this and this. I walk into that office, or I'm driving in the office, or I wake up to a text message and somebody just threw a wrench in my entire day.
Yeah.
Someone didn't sign something they were supposed to sign. Someone didn't get something done they were supposed to sign. I tell people all the time at dinner parties, I don't tell anyone I'm a lawyer. Half the time I don't even like lawyers, but I tell people all the time when they ask, what do you do for a living? I'm a glorified janitor. I clean up shit all day long. And then I'm an overpaid babysitter because I babysit people all day long. So it's, life's challenging.
Sure.
Every day there's a challenge. Everyone has their own challenges. Everyone looks at stuff. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And everyone that does it because they think it's easy end up finding out that this isn't easy, and then they go do something else.
That's right.
And that's what we're going to see during this time. And I think, in my profession, your profession, I think you're going to start seeing, everyone that thought, hey, it was easy, I'm going to get my real estate license. You know how many lawyers, doctors I talk to, to represent, and they're like, oh, I've got my real estate license. I'm like, really? You sell real estate too? Well, I do it, for investments and stuff. And I'm like, how's that working out for you? Well, I don't even know what I'm doing. Well, leave it to the professionals. Let them do that.
That's right. And there are so many, like you said, challenges we face and things that change every day. Sometimes I wake up and my calendar is pretty simple. And then I go, hey, maybe today would be the day I go hit some golf balls.
Yeah.
As soon as I grab my club out of my golf bag, the phone starts ringing. And, you really have to be good at multitasking and delegating because that's the way it goes.
It is. I mean, I can't tell you how many workouts I screwed up, how many, vacations I've spent 70% of the time in a hotel or in a house just working while the family's out doing stuff, how many dinners I missed because something comes up. And if you're dedicated to your craft, you're going to deal with the problem. I mean,
That's right.
I'm the biggest one that, sit there walk in to get my workout in and look at my emails. And then all of a sudden, past hour, I've been sitting on that workout bench, emailing and on a phone, solving a problem.
Done that many times. That's why I try to get out real early in the morning, Josh. That's for sure.
That's why I say get up before the zombies start moving around.
Yeah, exactly.
Once 8 o'clock hits, that's it. You better be ready to go.
Early bird gets the worm, Josh.
That's it, brother.
Which kind of leads in my next question for you. I mean, every success story starts with a morning routine.
Yeah.
I'm only asking you this so I can know what time I can text you if I have real estate questions.
That's fine.
Right?
I'm good at 5 a.m. 5 a.m. I'm sipping on that coffee. And I'm starting to read a little something to get my brain going. So, I'm a 5 a.m.er.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah.
What I used to do is I get up at 5, grab a cup of coffee, sit on the couch.
Yep.
Then you start flipping through, and you've done this many times, right? All of a sudden it's 6 o'clock, and you're like, oh, missed that opportunity.
That's it, yeah.
So now for me, when I get up, coffee in the car, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I'm going to hit the gym.
Yeah. No,
get a good workout.
You got to do that.
Start the day.
You start going down that trap, and you're like, yeah, I've been sitting here for an hour just playing around on my phone.
That's right.
Scrolling through stuff.
Yeah,
so.
just swipe.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I swiping? I've seen everything I need to see.
Yeah.
So, you and I have a pretty similar, career, home life, right? You got kids. I have kids.
Yeah.
You want to be there, not just be there like in person, but actually be there when you're at home, right?
Yeah.
And phone's ringing. And sometimes one of the kids may say, hey, Dad, you're on the phone a lot. I'm like, hey, listen, plan B is I'll go to the office and I'll work and I won't see you until tonight, right? But it's a work-life balance. It's tough. How do you
do that? It's a tough balance. I think Cyrus's first response, my son's, to hearing a phone ring is he, instead of saying hello, he would say, this is attorney Josh Rudnick. So, it's that work-life balance. He would hear me on the phone. I used to always say, hey, I've got my 4 or 5-year-old co-counsel in the back of the car, so you may hear him scream out while we're talking. But you've got to find balance in life. I mean, I'm the worst one to try to, do it all at 100 miles per hour, but you've got to find that balance. I mean, I think, you and I, obviously Vic and Jen are good friends, so they kind of have that same personality. I think they kind of they force us to do that balance because you and I would just work, and go on that vacation, work, and they're like, no, you got to pull it away. We need that time. So I think it's having that partner to kind of give you that balance.
Yeah.
And
just a few weekends ago, let's go out of town. I'm like, great, sounds great. I didn't have that busy of a weekend until we hop on the plane.
Yeah.
Right. Put the phone on airplane mode. Next thing you know, plane lands and I turn it off, and all of a sudden there's a million texts. That's the way it goes. Leave town.
That's it.
End up busy.
Yeah. I won't get on a plane unless I have Wi-Fi and connectivity. Because if not, I'm a nervous wreck for that flight.
Josh, I used to do that, and now I actually do put it on airplane mode, and that's like my 2 hours of just...
See, you're finding that balance.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's right.
That's what you're doing.
Josh, no one's home. You got the weekend yourself. You got one day you could do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Put on the TV whatever I want to watch, get my workout in, and, depends, what that workout is.
Golf? Are you a golfer?
Not a golfer.
Yeah.
I have ADHD. I can't sit there for 4 hours or 5 hours or whatever. I'd rather do something more extreme than sit down chasing a golf ball. I mean, I do appreciate the game or the sport. I appreciate it. I think golf courses are some of the most beautiful landscape, and I could see the attraction to it, and I've done it. I have golf clubs, and I've gone out and played golf on guys' trips and, scrambles and stuff like that. But after 2 hours, I'm like, get me out of here. So
it's a tough game, that's for sure. And your golf clubs, since you don't play, they probably have dots all over the place.
Oh,
not in one spot.
That's
right?
it. That's it. Yeah.
That's great.
You play a lot of golf lately?
Not so well. I'd like to.
Yeah.
But again, it's tough to.
Yeah.
Last weekend I took the kids shark fishing.
Nice.
That was fun.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Did you guys catch anything?
We did 7 sharks, tarpon.
Nice.
It was fun.
That's good.
Fun.
Yeah.
My slogan of the day was, "Don't get surrounded by sharks. Go with a name you can trust."
Yeah. I mean, that's my profession. We're a bunch of sharks.
That's
you know?
right. So, Josh, are you a movie guy?
Yeah, I mean, I love movies. Yeah, I mean, who's not? I mean,
Yeah.
you know, a good movie. I mean, yeah, I mean, it depends on, you know, my Netflix, my suggested are always, you know, there's always some crime, drugs, blowing up something.
Yeah.
That's kind of my movies.
Little action-packed suspense.
A little action-packed, yeah.
Josh, what's your favorite attorney movie?
My favorite attorney movie is probably The Firm, you know,
Okay.
or The Devil's Advocate.
Oh, that's a good one right there.
The Devil's Advocate, I think,
Yeah.
was. Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth, but you know, I think Devil's Advocate is good
Because that movie's probably what 18 years
Yeah.
old, maybe.
Yeah.
So, were you watching Devil's Advocate when you decided you wanted to be a lawyer, or The Firm, or something?
I'm telling you, I didn't want to be a lawyer when I was younger. I mean, I was going to go to law school and go into the FBI, and it was not until I was in law school that I said, you know what, I'm gonna run with this lawyer thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had no desire. I mean, I grew up in a law enforcement family. I mean, I wanted to chase criminals and carry a gun.
That's great.
Yeah, I can still carry a gun. We're in Florida, so we can all carry guns.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Josh, let's just dive right into this NAR lawsuit and settlement. Let's have you break it down and just tell me where it started, what happened to create this whole whirlwind of.
I mean, so the lawsuit, essentially the crux of this lawsuit is a lawsuit based on violation of antitrust laws. And it was coming out of Missouri. A Missouri jury found in favor of the plaintiff, a $1.5 billion judgment. And basically the crux of it is the plaintiffs were saying that the MLS and NAR's rules in the MLS were violating antitrust because they were requiring a seller to pay a cooperating broker commission. So they were requiring the seller to pay the buyer's agent a commission in order to list the property on the MLS. And everyone knows that the MLS is the biggest medium to list properties for sale. So sellers were saying, I didn't have a choice. I had to do it. NAR didn't agree with it. I personally don't agree with it. Everyone has a choice. You sign a contract. But there were prior realtors out there saying, and these realtors were saying, you have to do it. If you don't do it, I can't list your property. And then properly explaining to them, hey, if you do it, here's the benefits for doing it. But if you don't want to do it, or maybe we just reduce the commission. But they were saying that the MLS rules required you to pay a cooperating broker's commission. They were paying 5 to 6%. You were seeing 6% a lot, and it was violating these antitrust laws. So filed the lawsuit, they won, they got this judgment. NAR is looking at a $1.5 billion judgment saying, we got to do something because the ship is sinking quick. They settle it. Now we're in the settlement. $418 million or whatever it is paid over a period of time. So now we're in that. Part of the settlement is how are the new rules how are we gonna handle this moving forward?
Sure.
So MLS changed the rules. You're no longer now allowed to market a cooperating brokerage commission.
Yep.
Okay. So we're just not even giving you a choice anymore. We're saying, you can list, but you can't even advertise it. So all of that now is removed. And then they have a bunch of other rules, and the other big rule is now buyers agents must have their buyers sign a buyer-broker agreement. And everyone's going, well, what the hell is that? Well, you're going to have a buyer sign that they're agreeing to pay you a commission, you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer Agent, a commission. And if you don't have that sign, you cannot tour a home with a buyer until they sign it. So you have now people going, well, historically, the seller already paid the commission. Now I have to have my buyers sign this. And buyers are going to question, do I have to pay you? And you're going to have to explain to them. And you're not going to be able to know what commissions are being paid to you as a buyer's agent based just on the MLS listing. So now you're going to actually have to pick up the phone, which is, I know, is a novel thing in today's time. Actually pick up the phone and communicate with someone, you know, or you could still do the text message and email, but you're actually going to have communication with another human being on the other side to figure out what that commission is. And that's sending everyone through a tizzy, because everyone got really complacent, you know, and the world is, you know, lack of, look at how our kids are today. I mean, it's like, what are you guys doing? I'm hanging out with my friends. Well, what do you mean you're hanging out with friends? Well, they're on the computer and I'm in the bedroom. Like, that's not how we hang out.
Or they're all on the couch sitting there together.
Texting each other.
All on their phones, looking at something different.
Exactly. You go to dinner, look at how many tables everyone's on their phones, just, you know, and texting each other. I mean, in a group text where they could just drop the phone and talk.
It's so different. When I was a kid, we were, you know, on Nintendo playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out to see if we can beat Big Mike. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Together, playing together.
But that's even the weirdest thing about video games now. I mean, think about it. These kids watch other people play video games on YouTube. When we were kids, that was the worst thing, sitting in the room watching your buddy play. You couldn't wait for them to die so you could pick up the controller.
That's right. Exactly.
Now these kids are watching people play these video games on YouTube, and these guys are recording themselves making millions of dollars a year. So, or maybe we should do that instead of doing
I was thinking about that. Yeah, maybe we start like becoming a gamer or something
there
like that.
There we go.
Just sit there all day.
Well, but anyway, so back to NAR. You know, it's changing the whole landscape of how things are operating. You know, no longer are we now having commissions advertised on the MLS. Buyers and buyers agents have to sign these buyer broker agreements before touring the home. So that's all now effective as of August 17th.
Yeah, so in the big scheme of things, it makes you sign more papers, transparency as we discussed, and commercial real estate, though, it's been that way forever. There was never a commission listed in the MLS or compensation, right, Josh?
Correct.
The word compensation.
I mean, that's, you know, a little compensation goes a long way. But on the commercial stuff, you know, this is all MLS rules. A lot of these commercial deals are not listed on the MLS. Yeah. I mean, there's other methods of how they advertise that. So they're not even going to be affected by this unless they start advertising on the MLS.
So it's got to be 2 clicks from the MLS, no IDX, no showing time. It's got to be 2 clicks to tell what you're going to pay.
Correct.
Josh, recently, how funny is it with all these agents trying to sneak in ways that they're going to pay? Josh, listen, I will pay you 2.5 tacos or 3 tacos minus tomato and lettuce if you bring me a buyer by the end of today. Actually, I'll give you an extra taco.
Yeah.
I mean, the commission was hilarious.
It is. It's crazy. I mean, it's like the Joker. Like, riddle me this. What's going to be the commission?
Yeah.
Or people were going, well, I'll embed it in something, and then they'll find. I'm like, it's not a word maze. I mean, listen, you can still advertise what your commission is, but you can't do it on the MLS. You know, you got to be separate from the MLS, not using MLS vendors to advertise it. So put it on your own website. Let the agents know what the commission is. And buyer's agents, do your due diligence. Yeah. It's time to work.
Or you can also just mow your lawn and put the compensation. Did you see that one, Josh?
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Yeah. Just put 2.5%, cut it in the grass. Yeah.
Another one that was pretty funny, too, was the 3% key. Mm-hmm. When you saw that, you thought, that's not going to work. But that will work.
Yeah.
If you put a key in your lockbox.
Put a key in your lockbox with 3% on it.
That can happen.
Yeah, you can. I mean, put a big sign out in the front of the house. We're paying 2.5%, 3%.
That's right.
There you go.
So, Josh, to make this really simple for people to understand, let's fire some questions off to each other. If we're the buyer or seller or agent, it's funny when you're doing that with your attorney.
I mean, this is fun because I get to quiz you.
Yeah, you do.
And I mean, you get to quiz me too.
I get to quiz you too. But you know, your answer is the right answer usually, and I would be calling you to make sure I'm right when I'm saying these things.
So just text me across the room right now, and I'll tell you what the answer is to my question.
At 5 a.m. when you wake up.
There you go. That's it.
So Josh, I'm the buyer, okay? I walk into an open house. I want to see the house. Mm-hmm. Do I need to sign a buyer-broker agreement to do that?
To walk in an open house, no. I mean, you can walk into an open house, you know, that's the purpose of an open house. Yeah. And if it's your listing, you don't need a buyer broker agreement with that buyer to just open up your open house to them. You even open up your listing. If you're just performing services for the seller and someone calls you and says, I want to look at your listing, okay, open the door. Once you start working with that buyer and performing services for that buyer and not just your seller, now you've got to get that buyer broker agreement. But open houses are still going to run the same way they were running.
Josh, it's funny when we keep saying buyer broker agreement. If you said that 10 times in a row, I don't think you could.
I'm actually tired of saying it. I mean, this is,
we'll say BBA.
The BBA,
okay? From
yeah,
now
there
on,
we
we'll
go.
say
Yeah,
BBA.
yeah. Well, hey, it's my turn. I got one for you. What if a buyer comes to you and wants you to show them a property and say, I'm not going to sign that buyer broker agreement?
Well, there's no way to look at that property without signing a buyer broker agreement. I would have to have them sign it. However, a lot of buyers may come to me and say, well, I'll just go to another realtor, right? I mean, it is law now. You have to have a buyer broker agreement signed.
Correct. I mean, and I think
whether it's FaceTime, right? Or a showing in person.
Or I mean, there's FaceTime is interesting because the rule is that touring a property, and touring is you either walking them through that house or you're FaceTiming for them, virtually showing them the house by a virtual means. I mean, I think I had a realtor who's I think he's been doing this for probably 100 years now, and he's getting ready to retire. And he, the older guys are just like, this is nonsense, this is shit. And their famous saying is, if a buyer comes to you and says they don't want to sign that buyer broker agreement, they say, well, yeah, go fuck yourself. I could sit at home and work for free if I wanted to.
Well, that was my next question. Yeah, they don't want to sign it.
That's it.
Or I'm representing myself. Your question would be, right? Are you a licensed realtor?
Correct.
I'm not, but I'm representing myself.
Yeah. I love that all the time. I get that in my profession. I get lawyers say, I'm going to represent myself. And, and they always say, it's probably just the nail in your coffin when you're trying to represent yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to tell them, I think the thing that a lot of people may not understand is that buyer that says they don't want to sign it with you, and they're not going to be able to work with any agent in touring homes and seeing homes. And, that's, I think at that point, someone like you is really going to be able to set themselves apart, because you're going to sit down with that buyer and say, listen, this is what it is. And here's the benefit of you using me. I'm going to be able to negotiate the best price. I'm going to tell you who can inspect your house. I'm going to guide you with your lenders. I'm going to take you down and apply to that association. Because if not, who are they going to do? They're going to call Josh Rudnick? Because I'm going to say to them, you want to hire me because you don't want to pay your realtor. You want me to represent you? Okay. If fee's 4% of the purchase price, then I'll send them right back to you.
That's right. That's right. So I want to sign a buyer's broker agreement with you, Josh, but I want to exclude anything I find by myself.
You could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a contract.
Right in the
it's
bottom.
negotiable.
I mean, it's got open language, right?
Yeah. The beauty of all this is the crux of all this is that commissions are negotiable. Contracts are negotiable. We can amend terms. There are some restrictions on what you can do, but that's something that you could just put in the additional terms.
Josh, I'm not really happy the way this is working out. I mean, I signed a buyer broker agreement with you, and I can't reach you. I mean, I'm doing all the work myself, and doing all the searches on Zillow and everything else. And every time I call you, you're playing golf, and you don't return my calls. Mm-hmm. I want to terminate this agreement.
I've had a lot of buyers. I haven't had buyers. We used to get sellers would do that all the time. Call us up. I want you to represent me because I want to terminate the listing with my listing agent, and the broker isn't agreeing to do it. Okay, that is a contract that you signed. There are outs in these contracts. The same with the buyer broker agreement. Yeah. Where did they breach the contract?
Yeah.
And something like that, if a buyer came to me and said, Josh, can you represent me, or have one of your litigation partners represent me? I want to terminate this buyer broker agreement. And I know that the buyer's agent is not going to agree to terminate it. There's no cancellation clause. There's nothing in there that allows them to just unilaterally terminate it. The buyer can get out. I'm going to look at that contract that was signed and say, well, what didn't the agent do? Because did they breach it? And now we're in a battle, and it may go to litigation. And people are going to have to decide, do they want to fight that battle, or do we negotiate some type of out? And that's really where it's going to, but you're going to see that. You're going to see that. You know, what I fear is there's going to be agents that aren't going to properly inquire, did that buyer sign another buyer broker agreement? And is it still valid? You know, it's like someone comes to you, says, I want you to list my house. And you're like, well, I see it's listed.
Yeah, that's
with
easier,
somebody else.
because we could see it, right?
You could see
Buyer's
it.
broker agreement, you...
Correct. You can't see it. So it's like, did you terminate it? Well, I think I did. Well, do you have a signed termination? No. So then that buyer's agent should walk away from that. But I think you're going to find that buyers, there are going to be buyers that are not happy. They're going to say, hey, Joe, I was working with this agent. I signed this buyer broker agreement. I found him on their website. I came down, met with the guy once. He showed me a house, and he was drunk, or he's an idiot, and he doesn't know anything. I know you know the market. Can I work with you? And you're going to have to say, I can't do it until you're out of that other buyer's broker agreement. You're going to have to get that terminated. And then if they come to you and say, well, can you help me do that? You're going to say, no, call Josh Rudnick, because I'm not a lawyer.
Josh, I got a good question for you here. So a buyer signs 2 buyer broker agreements, right?
Yeah.
I deliver mine to my buyer. The other one does not deliver his to the buyer. Mm-hmm. Mine would be in effect.
Correct.
Because I delivered. It's not in effect until you deliver it to your buyer.
You're going law school on me.
I'm going deep.
This is first year law school contract. It's the old, we used to call it the mailbox rule. It's not accepted until you've signed it and delivered it back to me. So yeah, in that situation, your agreement with them is effective. Now, the problem for that buyer is they signed that agreement. They sent it to another agent. That agent signs it, sends it back to them. I mean, there's nothing in that other agreement that says this is only effective if I don't sign another buyer agent agreement. So now that buyer may be on the hook for 2 buyer agent commissions. And that could be a problem.
Yeah. Well, that's so important to explain.
Correct.
Them, right? You know, it's funny because this thing took place on the 17th, right? 17th.
Yeah.
And a few months back, we knew this was coming. Mm-hmm. So it's funny because some people waited until like the morning of the 17th to start. Months ago, when I knew this was coming, you know, you don't want to have to wait until it starts. You want to sharpen up your skills enough to have those conversations. But it's all transparency, right?
It is.
So if I'm talking to a buyer and I explain to him what this means, I'm good. They're not going to sign another agreement. No. However, if I don't explain it to them, they have no idea what they're signing.
Correct.
I would never do that.
And they're going to point fingers at you.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I mean, that's the thing that I always laugh when someone says, I just signed it. I had no idea what I was signing. The realtor put it in front of me.
So, Josh, hit me up with a question.
All right. How about this? Because I know this is going to come up. What if the buyer comes to you and says, Joe, I only want you to show me properties that are paying, the seller's paying a commission or giving me a concession for whatever percentage.
That's no problem. We can do that because the buyer requested, right?
Yeah.
Now, Josh, you know what the flip side of that deal is, right? When you're showing property and they didn't request that.
Correct.
What does that lead into?
Now you got a big problem.
Yeah.
Now you're steering.
That's gonna happen. I mean, you're gonna have to have more people on staff because the phone's gonna be ringing for sure.
It is. I mean, you got to be really careful of steering because that's violating your ethical rules. You know, and I think the CYA for agents to avoid anyone saying that they're engaging in steering, or a CYA to prevent that buyer that found out that you didn't show them a house that really fit what they really wanted and they really loved that house. And then you go back to them and say, well, but you told me you didn't want to see houses where sellers weren't paying commission. And so what I would do, and again, I don't sell real estate. I'm a real estate attorney. I don't have a real estate license. I have no desire to sell real estate. But what I would do is when you're setting up showings and you're looking at properties for your buyers, I would give them a list of all the properties that are for sale. Put out on that list, these are the ones paying commissions, these are the ones that are not. What properties do you want me to show you?
That's the best approach, Josh.
Yeah.
Working with people.
Yeah.
You know, I never had a problem with all this because I just talk to people.
Yeah.
People trust me. I talk to them. We work through the process together.
Yeah.
Explaining it, right? Being transparent.
That's it.
So buyer-broker agreement is signed, right? It's signed. However, now an agent wants to show their own listing to the buyer. That's another thing that's going to come up for you, I think, because the buyer-broker agreement is signed with the co-broke compensation.
Mm-hmm.
You take them to your own listing, right?
Correct.
The right thing is you would revise the listing, right? I mean, you revise the buyer-broker agreement.
Well, if you have a buyer-broker agreement signed, you better make sure it's a transactional relationship if you're going to start showing them your own commission or your own listings.
Yeah. Because does that supersede the listing agreement, wouldn't it?
It would. You have to go back to your listing agreement and make sure that the listing agreement allows you. Everyone understands that you're acting as a transactional agent and that you're able to show properties to, single agent, dual agency, transactional. There's nothing preventing you from showing a buyer that you have a buyer-broker agreement at one of your listings. You have to be transparent about the commissions. Both sides need to know what commissions are being paid.
Sure. So the right thing to do would be to have the revised buyer-broker agreement stating that I'm going to show you my own listing and that may change.
Correct.
Right?
What if a seller comes to you and says, I want you to list my property, but I don't want to pay a commission? What are you going to do to that?
Josh, that's a setup question, by the way. You're setting me up on that question. I like that. Mm-hmm. So basically, if I were to tell a seller, which is what you'd hope I was going to say, that no one's going to show your property if you don't pay a commission, that's the wrong thing to do.
Correct.
The right thing to do would be to tell a seller that I want to advise you through the process to get as much exposure as we possibly can. So I would recommend that we pay a buyer's agent because if we don't, there's 1 million realtors in the area. We want as much as we possibly can get because as a seller, you're graded on how long it's been in the market.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. And then you can hit them with some stats of, here's the statistics that show how long a property sits where there is no cooperating brokerage commission being paid and how fast properties move when they're. And you let them know this is all negotiable. If you don't want to pay it, this is your choice, and I'll list it. But it may come up in negotiations during the contract. And if you want to leave it for that portion, then that's fine. We'll do it. But here's my belief on what's going to move the property faster, and this is why. And it's based on the statistics. But again, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'll list your property. I just have to tell you what I think is going to best sell your house.
Relationships.
That's
right?
it. That's it.
Clients that trust you.
That's it. It's all about trust.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole. That's the way the world is.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Josh, I got a lot of questions from social media.
Oh,
Ask this question.
Oh, geez.
So I got a couple questions for
you. Didn't tell them I was coming on first because I'm kind of afraid
about
the questions
I
people want you
didn't.
to ask
So
me.
you would get real nervous if I asked you a lot of questions.
I wouldn't have showed up. Yeah.
So just give me quick answers on some of these.
Yeah.
What happens if you show a property without having a brokerage agreement signed?
Well, you're in trouble. The local MLSs are having fines being put out there, and the first offense, second offense, and then you could potentially, have to turn in that lovely license you got. So,
Josh, it's funny because when they asked me that question, what I told them was when they get their commission, leave $1,000 out for your first fine, and you can pay that when you close the sale, because that's what happens. You're going to get fines. But the cool thing about this whole process is that everybody has to do it.
Correct.
I can't come to you and you're going to say you have to sign it, and I come to me and I say, hey, you don't have to sign it. It's across the board. It's a law. So
Yeah.
That's the best thing about this whole process.
Yeah. It's a rule.
Everybody has to do
so
it.
It is. It's a rule, and this is the way we have to operate, and that's what you tell people.
However, flexibility, that's a different story. Working with people. You know, people looked at this agreement and really thought it was a way to lock a buyer in. Mm-hmm. Like, Josh, I want you to sign this form, which kind of means that I have you locked in, and no matter what you buy, I'm going to get paid commission, right? That's not what this is all about. And being flexible through the process, I mean, you can offer somebody a one-time show, right?
Correct.
You can offer them a 30-day, a 60-day, a year, whatever you want to put in there. As long as you agree on it, that's fine. If they want to exclude a property that they're looking at, that can be written in.
That's it. You know, and you can, you know, you're courting these people. It's like dating. I mean, remember, it's like, okay, we're going to go on a first date. Like, how am I going to make that first impression? And you can even look at it because a buyer may say, well, I don't really know if I just want to buy a property in Lee County or Collier County or Duval County or wherever, Palm Beach County. And I don't really want to be married to you forever. And in that situation, you could say, okay, I've got these 5 Naples houses or 5 Palm Beach houses that you want me to show you. So we're going to sign a buyer-broker agreement for these 5 houses. And if you buy one of these, this is the commission that you're agreeing to pay me.
Or not.
Or not. You know, but these are the 5 houses I'm going to show you. These are the 5 houses that are subject to our contract, our buyer-broker agreement. And if I get paid commission from the seller, what your obligation to me is reduced by that, and I can't get paid more than what is in that agreement.
That's right.
And you show them those 5 houses, and they don't buy any of them, but they're like, I really like Joe.
I like him. I like Josh.
Okay.
What a good guy Josh is. I mean, he's a good listener. He doesn't even like golf.
He hates golf.
Hates golf.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you amend that agreement to now all of Lee County, all of Collier County, all of Miami-Dade, whatever it is, because now you're building that relationship with them, and they're comfortable with you. He's going to do a good job. He's going to get me. I mean, that's how you navigate it. I mean, but again, it takes being able to communicate with people.
It does, yeah.
And there's a lot of people who just can't communicate.
No. Well, it's all about understanding, you know, the agreements.
Correct.
Being flexible with people, developing that relationship. I feel like I've been kind of doing this I think this is pretty good for me here because I've been doing that my whole life.
Yeah.
Just working with people, being flexible. They trust you. You know, the more marketing and branding and getting reviews that you do, the more people trust you. It'll be harder, though, for someone that does not sell real estate full time and it's not really a focus. That's going to be tough.
It is. I think you know, before all of this came out, I mean, I looked at the industry and everything that happened through COVID and stuff. And when that frenzy stopped, I remember the first seminar I taught to a bunch of realtors about a year and a half ago. And I said, you know, the time of getting paid a commission has ended. You now have to earn your commission.
That's right.
And it was a class I spoke to a bunch of new agents. And I said, what's going to set you apart is you're going to work hard. You're going to hone your skills, and this is your profession. And that's how you're going to earn your commission, because that time of just getting paid a commission because you had a real estate license, that's over.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It's gone. Now the buyers have the choice, right?
Yeah.
The buyers are going to be interviewing agents, right?
Well,
So you're going to have X amount of listings, and you're going to have X amount of buyer-broker agreements that you need to communicate with buyers. You know, it's like a listing, right? I go into a listing, I talk to a seller, we talk about time frames and things that I'm going to do through the process, right? And you do them.
Yeah.
Same thing with the buyer. Now, if you have a buyer agreement with someone and they find a property and you have an exclusive sign with them, but you didn't tell them about it, I mean, you are failing as an agent, right? You should be communicating with your buyers through the process.
You absolutely should. I mean, you know, everyone wants communication. I mean, I think a phone call goes a long way. You know, even if, you know, in my practice, my biggest pet peeve is why wasn't that person's phone call returned? Why didn't I have an answer for them? Well, you know, call them, tell them, listen, I will get back to you, but your question was received. I'm looking into it, and I'll get back to you. You know how far that goes?
Huge, that's for sure. And a lot of times people don't do that. That's why I'm so big on communication. My team, They all know that if somebody's waiting on something, if I'm waiting on an answer from another agent,
Yeah.
they don't know that. They're wondering why I'm not getting back to them because I'm waiting on someone else.
Correct.
So it's always about telling that person, like right now, I'm waiting on a wind mitigation from a condo association.
Oh, geez.
That's
good
and that
luck
could
with
take
that.
some time.
Yeah.
My buyer asked me for that, and I basically explained to him, it's going to be a couple days.
Yeah.
As soon as I hear from them, I'll let you know. Joe, cool.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Just let me know.
They're good to
Now,
go.
if I wouldn't have said that, all of a sudden now they're going to be waiting for me, and I'm waiting for them, but it's all communication.
That's
right?
it. Yeah, it really is. I mean, communication goes a long way. And that's, I think, you and I and our generation is blessed with, we didn't grow up in the cell phone, really internet era. So we were having to communicate. We were having to go knock on the neighbor's door and saying, hey, Tommy, do you want to come out and play with me? I'm Josh. Nice to meet you. Than just getting on social media and communicating and making friends that
That's
way.
right.
I mean, I think that I see it all the time with, the younger generation. I mean, I see it with my own stepchildren. I'm like, what do you mean you're texting me from upstairs? What's for dinner? Walk your ass downstairs and ask me.
That's right.
I'm like, I don't even respond. I'm like, you get your ass out of bed, you lazy.
Yeah, come down
but
here.
that's the thing. It is it's one of those things. I think communication is in any. I mean, how many times going to the doctor? I mean, not to bash doctors, but like, why isn't the doctor calling me back? I want to know.
I'm
what's
dying.
I'm dying.
I'm in my head. I'm like, I don't know. I'm on Google and everything, right?
Google MD, and
I've
all of a
ran
sudden,
down 20.
all of a sudden, I've diagnosed myself with some terminal illness.
that's right.
And then like, it's a hangnail, you pussy.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Josh, in a buyer's agreement, can buyers and brokers agree on a range?
You can't agree on a range. They initially, it's funny, like this is ebbing and flowing and things are changing, because I believe about 2 months ago in the NAR's guidelines, they allowed a range. And then on July 31st, they amended their guidelines and said you have to be able to identify it. It's ascertainable. And you couldn't do a range. You had to be X% flat fee, but it had to be objectively ascertainable, and everyone knew what the commission was. So people were going, well, but I wanted it 2 to 4%. And what if it's paying more than what I put in there? You amend your buyer's broker agreement at that time.
That's
but
right.
you can't do ranges. Yeah.
I heard a funny story from Jay.
Yeah.
So you were given a speech, right, on the whole process of the NAR, right? And I think because things have changed so much, I believe one of them changed when you were on stage doing the event, right?
The text messages,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hold on, Josh, delete number 9 or whatever he told you.
That's what it is.
Because that's what's happening. It's changing. It's evolving.
Changing, and it's going to continue to change. I mean, it's like the contract forms that we all use. I mean, the form contracts, whether they're FAR bar, local board of realtors contracts. People are going, why is it changing every year? Why are we amending every year? Well, we never had this thing called COVID before, so all the contracts were changing based on this. We weren't having all these hurricanes like we were now, so all the contracts changed with this. As things happen, you can't predict everything. You want to be proactive on as much as possible, but sometimes you have to be reactive to an event that occurs. And I think with this, what we're going to see is things will continue to change. As we start living in this world, problems are going to arise that we weren't able to foresee when these great minds, so to speak, sat down and figured out how to navigate this. Okay, here's the forms that will help guide everyone through it. There's going to be something that was missed or not foreseen.
Oh, for sure.
And things are going to change. These forms will change. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean,
the contracts will get thicker, that's for sure. Closings will take longer.
Contracts will
get thicker.
It's like loan documents. I mean, people, you sit down for someone buying a house, and they're like, why is that loan package so thick? And I'm like, it's my profession. I blame a bunch of lawyers that started picking through these documents. It's not just signing a note and a mortgage anymore. There's a bunch of disclosures.
Josh, I was in a closing one time, and the buyer wanted to amend and change
the loan docs?
all the docs. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Not
I
happen.
laugh. Yeah.
Not
I mean, I
happen.
tell people all the time,
You can read them.
you can read them and you can sign them, but I always say if you're giving someone that amount of money and you're trusting them to pay you back, are you going to let them dictate what those documents say?
That's right. Josh, another question. You're showing 10 properties to a buyer.
Yeah.
You could put them all in one agreement,
Correct.
couldn't you? Just list them right on there.
You can.
Instead of making them sign 10 different buyer-broker agreements. You have to know these contracts.
Correct. You could put a geographic location, single-family home in, Collier County, Lee County. But I like to be more specific. But if you've got 50 homes you're showing them, attach an exhibit, a list of all 50 homes that you're showing them, and that, those are homes. If you're going to show them 51 homes and you only have 50 on there, you better amend that agreement.
They're going to want the one that's not on there.
They always
that's how it goes.
Yeah, of course.
Josh, I love how I see a lot of the companies out there changing the buyer-brokers agreement and making them their own, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool and it's different, but wouldn't it be the best just to keep the same form to make it simple for you to?
I mean, for me, it would be, so we know what forms everyone's going to work off of. It's scary what I see is being put out there. I've seen some forms that have been presented already to brokers that I represent, and I'm like, don't sign that form. Where did you get that? Oh, this brokerage is requiring me. And then I look at another thing is use the forms that are spit out by the Florida Association of Realtors. Because when people start now getting squirrely and these lawsuits come, well, what form did you use? Well, I used the canned form that we prepared. Or, no, I used what the Florida Association of Realtors approved, or the Naples Area Board of Realtors, or one of these. I used their form. And you kind of, you're never going to be able to hide behind it, but at least you can say, this is the form that was used. I didn't prepare a form that some judge is going to look at and say, this is so egregious. Like I'm awarding them damages and treble damages because you engaged in all these, fraudulent practices by having them sign that agreement.
That's right.
So I'd be careful with that.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of builders, so say, for example, a builder wants to offer a bonus or 3 tacos plus an additional taco with extra sour cream.
Did you have tacos? It was Taco Tuesday last night, right?
Yeah, and I had tacos.
Yeah, I figured.
So what happens with bonuses from builders?
You have to, again, in those buyer-broker agreements, the agreements are providing that you're not allowed to have compensation above what you're getting paid per that agreement. So if you're getting more than what you originally agreed to with the buyer, you need to amend that agreement.
Josh, bonuses.
Transparency, man.
Yeah, and we don't always love the term bonus, right? Because that's the pros don't worry about the bonuses; they worry about the client being happy. This was a question that came in, by the way. I need you to come to my
office in December and say the pros don't care about bonuses, and tell that to my staff when I have to do Christmas bonuses.
Nice. I will. I'll do that. Josh, how will compensation look like on a closing statement?
I mean, it's going to look the same way. It depending on who's paying what. If a buyer is actually paying the commission, it's going to be shown on the buyer side of the closing statement. If it's still getting paid, if it's still getting paid from the seller's proceeds, it'll show on the seller's side. The thing I think a lot of people, it's funny, as this came out, I started realizing that there were a lot of agents, listing agents, that didn't understand the nature of how commissions were paid. Because they signed these listing agreements where their sellers, their owners of the property, agreed to pay them 6% commission. And then in that listing agreement we had where I'm going to share in X% with the cooperating broker. And agents always looked at a closing statement and saw it paid to both agents on the closing statement. We just dispersed the proceeds at closing. But theoretically, the way it was paid was it went to you as listing and you shared in it. And it was like when I was telling this group of agents experience, they were like, you thought I just told them something that was like, oh my God, this is, And I'm like, guys, that's how it's always was. Why do you think when a buyer was filing for a procuring cause claim, they weren't bringing the seller into the board of realtors? They were bringing you, the listing broker, in because you agreed to pay it. They didn't have a contract
That's right.
with that other, with the seller. The contract was between you as the listing agent and the owner. And you're off. Now, obviously, it was on the MLS, and you were offering cooperating commission. So, from a buyer's side, from a buyer's agent, from a closing statement, it's whoever's paying it, it's going to show.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, if you have a form that's listing commission to buyer's,
correct
agent. I mean, right? That's how I'm sure that's how you'd see it on the closing statement.
Absolutely. And then from a buyer's agent standpoint, and buyer's agents need to make sure they're getting paid their commission. So you have a buyer-broker agreement with your buyer that they're paying you, but if you've negotiated that the seller's paying or the listing broker, so you need a compensation agreement directly with that listing broker
Sure.
or directly with the seller, whether it's a seller to buyer agent compensation or a listing agent to buyer agent compensation. I do know that people are writing it in the additional terms of the contract, okay? And that's great. Your buyer and seller are agreeing that the seller is going to pay X% to buyer's agent. But what happens if buyer and seller get together and say, hey, let's screw my agent and amend the contract and take out that additional term? You don't have any contract.
No,
You're not
right.
a party to the contract.
That's right.
So now you got to go back to your buyer-broker agreement and go after your buyer, because your buyer agreed to pay you that.
Sure.
But so you want to make sure, you're taking it a step further and getting those compensation agreements. But as far as closing statements, whoever's paying it, it's going to show. Lenders, we got to get these all approved too. So you got to be careful, who the buyers you're working with. VA just released, I think it was last month, they're going to allow buyers to pay commissions to their brokers.
That's right.
It's a temporary thing, and we'll see if they implement it full time. But you're going to run into that if you work with buyers that are financed. You need to make sure they're because you can't finance a commission. You can't part of the loan. You can't give them.
That's right.
A $800,000 loan plus another 3% kicker because they got to pay on that loan. So it's all part of closing costs. You can negotiate it in concessions. Seller's going to agree to credit the buyer 3% toward closing costs and prepaids. That commission's a closing cost.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Josh, one last question for you.
Yeah, dude.
Can a whole brokerage agree that all their listings do not pay co-brokes? Or buyers buyer's compensation?
I mean, I guess they could, and they could go to all their, make sure that all their sellers know that they're not paying a co-broke, and if the sellers want to pay commission, the seller would pay the buyer's agent directly. But yeah, I mean, you can set it as a policy. I mean, I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah, not that well.
No, especially when you have a broker saying, hey, we're not going to be paying co-brokes, and then 50% of your agents are like, but I'm buyer's agents, like, so that means I don't get paid. What are you guys doing? So
after 6 months and they've missed 100 opportunities, they're going to say,
exactly,
what did we just do? Right?
Yeah.
So Josh, really, that's it. And I really appreciate you coming here today.
Of course.
Thank you. This is very helpful. I want to make it really easy for people because people start reading this lawsuit and start dissecting it their own ways. This is the best way to go back and forth with the pro, you.
Well, I appreciate it, man.
So,
well, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
It's good seeing you.
The boat's getting ready to take off. Either you got to get on the boat or you're going to be on the dock waving as the boat goes by, right? It's all about adapting and finding a way to navigate through this market, not only with the NAR settlement, knowing how to work through that and being flexible with people, but also knowing your market.
Yeah.
Branding, right? The market's hot. You're doing great. The market's not. You got to find a way to promote your brand, get people to trust you, get people to like you, right?
That's it.
It's all about being likable, trustworthy, and the name that they can trust. So
absolutely.
We're going to get curveballs along the way.
We are. You got to bob and weave.
That's right. Just a matter of how you handle them. And when the curveball comes, you got to hit it the right field.
Yep. That's it, brother.
That's it.
That's all you got to do.
Thanks again, Josh.
All right, man.
All right.
Appreciate it.